Can you hear me? Can't hear anything you're saying.
Hey, Coach. Coach.
I can't hear you.
That was my fault. I actually had my mic off.
Like I was saying words, but I wasn't saying nothing coming out. I was like,
It's all good. I forgot I had my mic off. Been a long day. What's going on, Coach?
"How are you?"
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm well.
We got thanks for joining. We got P Squared in the building. Not Paul Pierce, but Coach
Nah, not
Patrick
that one.
Paul. Even better, even better. The real P Squared. What's going on, Coach? We got Coach, as I just said, we got Coach Patrick Paul in the building tonight with Francis Marion University basketball. But as we're going to talk about, that's a big part of your story, but that's not the whole story. So what's going on, Coach, man? Thanks for joining. And what you been up to?
I'm blessed just to be on the platform. Just ready to get started with the season. Just got our guys on campus this past weekend, so just going through that process.
All right, you see, you coming on with all that humility. We don't do all that on here, man. We got to talk about it. So, where does your story start, Coach?
How much time you got?
we got all we got all night, baby.
No, I got a unique story. Just kind of very blessed, just to kind of go through it. Born and raised Florence, South Carolina, so I'm a hometown kid. Went to Francis Marion for a year. And I kind of woke up. I was playing for Coach White. Woke up wanting to do something different. So I enlisted in the Air Force. I was in the Air Force for 8 years. And like doing that. Go ahead.
Let me stop you, Coach. That's a crazy beginning. So you are from Florence, and you went to Wilson, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you hoop or anything at Wilson? And what time period were you
This
were
was
you there?
2002, 2005. I graduated class of 2005. Yeah, and that team was loaded. So I grew up with Dominique Henry and Brian Goodson and Sheldon Thompson. That was the year we lost back-to-back years to Holly Hill Roberts.
Oh
Um,
wow!
and
Back
so
in the day, Holly Hill Roberts.
yeah, so it was a time, and we had 2 years later that team ended up progressing and winning the state championship, and that team was Charmel Brackett and Dominique Lacey and Sam Muldrow. So that it was a pipeline of kids that kind of just grew up and into everything. But to be honest, my primary sport was, I grew up, I was a baseball guy. Like, I did basketball, but basketball was my love, but I was a way better baseball player. I was basketball player.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that because you actually ended up playing both at Morris, if I'm not mistaken.
I
But
did.
but one thing that has always kind of stood out to me, especially being on this platform, we talk to people from everywhere, not only South Carolina, but different states or whatever. But we do have a lot of people from Columbia on the show. But speak specifically about PD and the pipeline of play athletes that have come out of that region in that area, and some of the guys and the girls that you looked up to as you were coming up.
The pipeline is like super, super, super deep, and I feel like the PD area, and just like the state of South Carolina, is a very untapped market. It's a lot of athletes. That is tons of talent. that the issues that I talked to a lot of high school coaches and middle school coaches in the AAU programs is just like the resources is not fully there, but growing up, Carlos Powell and RIP to Major Wingate,
Major
um,
Wingate was nice.
Kassan Breeden, Rashard Dickey, Raymond Sessions. That was just doing my era, and then following with the Sam Muldrow, the Dominique Lacey's, the Charmel Brackets. It's like it was tons of talent that just kind of just walked through, like just the PD area, and during the time it was like it was so much talent, and I felt like it just kind of just went under the radar.
Yeah, I mean that's and we're gonna get to the event that you actually hosted, if I'm not mistaken, about 2 weeks ago. And that's one thing. Not just showcasing the PD talent, but there was talent from all over the state. But obviously, it was in the PD area. But with that being said, you talked about you're actually going to Francis Marion. What drove you to go to Francis Marion, and then what was behind the decision of you leaving after 1 year?
Um, it's very, very funny story.
I hope that's not a long story.
No, it's not. Like I came in there just with Coach Swipes, and Coach Swipes was great. He had a plan for me. Plans change. I was there doing well academically. I was just there learning the system. Coach Swipes got let go. And then Coach Edwards came in. Had a great conversation, and he was just like, hey, like, you're welcome to stay, but I can't guarantee you anything. And like I as a 19-year-old kid, I didn't know how to feel about that. So the transfer portal was not really a thing back then. So I was just like, hey, like, like I want to continue. The biggest thing that I try to tell kids now is you want to, finish college debt free or closer to, being debt free as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, all throughout high school, I was an ROTC guy. So, like played sports, ROTC. So, like I kind of had the, familiarity of the background. So I did it. So, I woke up, after the semester over May 4th. So like May 8th, I woke up, went to the recruiter's office. Didn't tell my parents, didn't tell my grandparents. I just woke up, went into the ASVAB, scored like an 85. About a week later, I told them that Monday night, like, hey, in the morning, I'm going out to MEPS. And they looked at me crazy, that Tuesday I signed, picked my job, signed my paperwork. And probably 3 months later, I was shipped off to San Antonio.
So were you on scholarship at Francis Marion at the time?
I was.
So you left scholarship and said, I got to go get money in the Air Force. Is that correct?
Yeah. Coach Edwards, he said you can come back, the money situation won't be the same. So I was just like, hey, like, I knew where I come from. And, like, hey, I fought to get here. Like, I don't want to put my mom into any type of debt. Like, so with my education, it's something I value. So like, hey, this is I didn't have a plan. I tell people it's a way to go about it. If you have a plan, if you don't have a plan, join the military. If you have a plan, join the military. So it's a unique thing, like, so like you have, it gave me discipline and structure for, 8 years of my life. I knew I had a meal. I was fed 3 times a day. I had some place to stay. And I had a great job, and, it was something I loved doing.
So, wow, man. Again, Coach Patrick Paul, now from Francis Marion University, Coach, but one of the first people in the transfer portal back in the day, about 2005, 2006. So with that being said, as you just mentioned, you were in the Air Force for is either 8 years. It sounds like. What did you learn from? Obviously, you learned a lot, but what are some of the key things that you learned? And you just talked about discipline during that time period, and what ultimately got you to Mars?
Um, team discipline structure, organizational skills. I was a fast burner. I hit E5 in 5 years while I was in. Just the work ethic. And it's never I. It's always we. Like
Mm-hmm.
we beat eyes every day of the week. So it kind of continued, like when it comes to coaching, that's the type of things, and that's the type of thing I instantly instill in everything we do. But I got a chance to play a lot of basketball, and it was a lot of different types of basketball. Um, I met, my friends are from all across the world. So like my best friend was from Houston, Texas. My other close friend was from Philadelphia. My other, close friend was from California. So like, I'm spending time in gyms and I met so many unique people from just the military and just from the basketball perspective. I just became a sponge. And and the view and eyes that I have from basketball is different from a lot of other people. Just having the chance to play against a lot of people, like military basketball is at a very high extreme that a lot of people don't know about. Like I was blessed with a chance to be all Air Force, which was probably like best 13 guys in the Air Force, and it's like we went through training camp for 3 weeks, and you bring 40 guys in, and you kind of train, and give you a funny story about that. Like, hey, when I got the invitation to come to training camp, head coach set me down. He was just like, hey, we love your game, this and that and the third. I would like for you to come be like number, you can be number 8, number 9 for us. At that time, 21, 22, like 8, number 9, like you can't tell me that. Like I'm a bucket. Like, I can do everything that everybody else can do. Till I got to training camp and I realized like, whoa. I met Danny Nagule. Danny Nagule played at the Air Force Academy. He was Mountain West Player of the Year. Matthew McCraw also played at Air Force Academy. He had 27 against Illinois when they had in the NCAA tournament when they had Luther Head, D. Brown, Darren Williams. So yeah. I'm in training camp with these guys. I'm like, okay, well, I see why I'm number 8, number 9. But it just it was a very humbling experience just to be a part of those teams, and I got a chance to take a lot from everybody, and instill a different type of work ethic. Like I took things from a lot of people, and and it made me a better person. Like, hey, like I got tired of, hey, like I was a great rebounder. Okay, well, how do I make my game better? So like, all right, well, let's work on this. So I was like, hey, you know what? I got tired of waiting on getting the ball. How about I go become a better rebounder? So, I became a better rebounder. I became a better distributor. Like, hey, like, let's be able to grab the rebound and, create for myself. But most importantly, I became like, hey, like, I wanted to win at no cost. So, like, I became a guy who's willing to do whatever and sacrifice whatever, just to be a part of winning. And that's what matters to me. So like when I instill in the kids, I'm just like, hey, like, do 30 points really matter to you? Or you rather, be a part of a winning program, a winning team? So
Man, it sounds like your world really expanded, once you got in the Air Force. You talk about your friends from really all over the world, not just domestically. I'm sure you know some people international as well. So it sounded like it, and you talked about being a sponge. It sounded like your world expanded. What was behind your decision to ultimately get to Morris?
I was on my last deployment. I was thinking about I was on the verge of am I gonna re-enlist or am I not gonna be enlist? I'm in Kandahar, Afghanistan. So like playing, this guy in the army, he stopped me. They have a whole league out there. So they were just like he stopped me. He's like, hey,
In Afghanistan?
yeah, like
Shit.
it's a wild time, and it's a really big thing, like when you're deployed, it's like you don't have family, so like these sporting events that you get a chance to play in is like our big thing. So like like it's sold out every night, like you're playing in front of 300, 400, 500 people every time you get a chance to play. So this guy in the army, he was roughing the game. He was like, "Hey, where do you play at?" I was like, I play, I went to, Francis Marion, and I woke up and decided I want to come to the military. He was just like, you can go back to college and kind of still play, right? I was like, he's like, man, I'm gonna get you in contact with a couple people. So his daughter was like the lead at the time. He was the leading scorer at she was the leading scorer at Florida Gulf Coast. So he got me in contact with that coaching staff. We start having preliminary conversations. I was supposed to walk on there. I was just like, hey, I was just like, let me open it up. So, talk to a few more people, have some film from, games and other things that I've done. And, I kind of put myself out there, and I had probably like 9 or 10 schools to really kind of choose from. Alaska, Anchorage, Rogers State, um, Oklahoma Baptist, but my heart was really sold on going to Winston-Salem. So like I was talking to Winston-Salem. Yes. Lost contact. But I also knew I want to get back on the East Coast and get closer to home. So Winston-Salem State made sense. I was talking to family, like, hey, talking to my uncle. He's like, Coach Hawk at Morris College back then was still the head coach. He was a great family friend. My whole family graduated from there. And not my mom, but my uncle, my aunt both played there basketball. My uncle played baseball. My aunt played volleyball and played softball there. So I'm just like, hey, it's not it's 40 minutes down the road from home. Like I'm focused on, I just want to hoop. I want to get a degree and that'd be it. So, I had a conversation with Coach Hawk and, it felt like home for me. Like just the conversation, small environment, I can be, I can go home each and every day. So it made sense. So that's how I ended up at Morris College.
That's crazy because you ended up playing, or you played baseball as well as basketball at Morris. Is that correct?
Yes.
And with that being said, what maturity-wise, how was it different when you stepped out as a college basketball player at Morris, as opposed to when you initially stepped out as a freshman at Francis Marion? What changes could you kind of? I would assume the game was a lot slower for you as well. When you stepped out at Morris because you had so much more experience. But how was it different?
It was, and the funny story about that is that's when my teammates told me I was going to become a coach, and I didn't see it. Like, cause I was very adamant on like the little things. Like, hey, like, like when practice, before practice, I was the one and like, all right, I got out of class. I took the jerseys, I hung jerseys up in everybody lockers. Like, hey, like, I got out of, I was blessed to be in a good financial situation at the time. Like, hey, like, like all right, guys, like we don't have nothing going on. Like let's go grab a bite to eat. Like and like the sportsmanship and the teammanship was everything to me. So because that's what I was used to in the military. So like like the guidance. You always want to leave someplace better than you left it. And when I was in the military, I had like good leadership. So like I still treated it the same. So like every freshman came in, like, hey, you have my number. You can call me, text me. You need to then to make a run to the store. Like you need anything, I was always there. I always was that guy. So that kind of made sense for me. So like it's funny because he's actually a high school head coach. My point guard, busted knots at Marlboro County. Like
Okay.
he told me in my junior year, he's like, man, you're gonna be you're gonna be a great coach. And he's like, yo, you're gonna be a great college coach. That I told him after I was done, like I was done, like I was done hooping, like, hey, like I'll be around basketball. If it ain't playing, I ain't doing it. That was my thing. At least that's what I thought. So
Now, two questions. One is the obvious when you were at Morris. Did your teammates call you old school? And the
oh man,
second,
yo,
and
the
the
jokes,
second,
like the jokes I heard was like funny. They're like, so like the biggest one was like, so you really saw Jordan play? Like, yes, like I like they're like, so y'all never seen like Jordan play? They're like, nah, we only saw highlights. So you were alive when Michael Jordan was actually playing. I was like, yeah, I was alive. Like I saw all six championships. So
so,
yeah.
so the other question is a serious question. Was it hard for you? Because I would assume you came in with not just your age, but you coming from a military background, you came in with a sense of maturity and some paper, but you had some maturity. With that being said, was it hard for you to sometimes um, assimilate with basically kids who are much younger than you and weren't as experienced as you were at that time?
It wasn't because like being E5, I had troops. So like
Right.
with me having troops, it was just like, hey, like in the Air Force, they have something before you become a sergeant or before you have any type of leadership position, you have to go to leadership school. So you for 8 weeks, you're taught how to like manage, and and how to deal with people like and manage their skills. So like that part became easier. The struggles that I had was, hey, like I've been all across the world, throughout many countries and everything, and now I'm just around one set of people,
Right.
and that kind of was like culture shock for me because I'm so used to being around Hispanics and Asian people and different types to just being at a HBCU. Like the first month and a half, like I was just like I was kind of like shocked. That was the biggest struggle I had more than anything.
Right. So you end up graduating from Morris, and I see you've got experience with upward, obviously on the girls' side, training with passion-driven sports training. How did you ultimately land at Francis Marion?
Okay, that was a very quick story because like it happened in a blur. Probably that summer, I decided, hey, I'm walking away from teaching. I want to do something different. I didn't know what different was. I had no idea what it was. So I was just like, hey, I was coaching with Upward. I'm having a great experience and everything, and it finally hit for like 3 months. It was just like, hey, I got to get a job. um, my best friend, Daryl Kelly Jr. Congratulations to him. He just became the AD at Marion High School. He called me. He was like, "Hey,"
Oh, that's great.
he was like, "Hey, do you want to still coach in college?" I was like, absolutely. He was like, all right, cool. He was like, send me your resume. I was like, all right, well, So I'm actually working out a kid the next day, and my phone rings, and I look, and the phone said Gary Edwards. I was just like, why is I'm thinking it's like a prank call. So I answer the phone. He was like, hey, it's Coach Edwards from Francis and Marion. How are you? No idea. I don't think he remembers me at all. So, we have a conversation. He's like, look, I got to open it for this assistant coaching job. He's like, he was recommended, like, hey, you got time tomorrow to come see me. Let's sit down and talk. I was like, absolutely. He's like, hey, I want you to meet my assistant. And, so, the next day, so that Wednesday. So I go meet the, Coach Zender, had a great conversation with him. He told me about how Coach Edwards run his program, what the expectations, and met with him, did a whole tour, everything. He's like, hey, I'm going to tell Coach Edwards, I recommend you for the job. And, that was that Wednesday. And that Thursday, I had a contract on my desk in my email. Like, hey, are you going to accept the position or not? So all that happened in a matter of a week. So
wow. And that's crazy. I guess 2022, was that your first year there?
Yes, sir.
Yep. And you guys went 10-19 that year. And talk a little bit about.
I was there the year before. No, my first year we went 14-14.
Okay. Talk a little bit about what you learned that first year, because that was your first year of being a college coach, correct?
There's a lot of. I was blessed to have good mentors who high school coaches who are phenomenal. Yeah. Coach English at Wilson High School runs his practice like a college program. Coach Coughlin at Lancaster runs his program hard nosed like a college program. Coach Teasley at Trinity Collegiate, he was a very good high school coach and a very good college coach who's coaching at Utah State now. I got a I got a chance to be around those guys. So when it came to the work, nothing really changed. It was just an understanding. I think the biggest, thing for me was just understanding that, like, hey, like, I got a chance to be here. I had to prove to myself that I belong here. So just understanding, like, hey, what did, the prep look like? The prep is not much different, but the details matter. Like, every details, every, I need to be dotted, every T need to be crossed, and that's the difference between winning ball games. So, like, we pride ourselves, like, now rolling up our sleeves and just, like, being the hardest workers. Like, we just want to outwork everybody. Like, there's a kid not in the state of South Carolina. If, my head coach asks, I can tell you about them, and hey, what they're upside, what they can do, what they can't do, what level they are, because, I'm constantly in the gym. Like, I don't have a wife. I don't have kids. So I do basketball. Basketball is my hobby. Basketball and sneakers. Like, there's like, I stay out of a lot of conversations. Like, that's how I really, I speak to everybody. But when people start getting in depth to really talking about basketball, I kind of shy away because, like, how much do you really know about it and do you really love it? Like, I enjoy your platform because these are true avid basketball lovers. And that's what it is. So.
Well, with that being said, man, you got to tell the audience about Coach Z, because Coach Z is a favorite of the Lost Letterman, man. AKA, we call him Coach Prime. We call him Coach Prime. I didn't know who Coach Z was about 3 years ago. I saw him at the gym, and I saw him I saw him come in. I said, man, that dude's cool right there. I don't know the rest of those coaches, but that dude is cool. Talk a little bit about Coach Z, man, and how much you enjoy working with him.
Phenomenal coach, phenomenal person. That's the main thing about it. From a person who's a hard worker.
He looks like a hard worker.
He's a person you can't outwork. Like you can't outwork him. Like practices at 6. My goal is always to be the first one in the gym. So I'm in the gym 4:50, for practice. He been there 20, 30 minutes already, and just kind of like he's ready to go. Like he's the type of person he loves his job. He loves basketball. Like he's a sponge, he's constantly learning just like me. So like it's like the blessing is just working beside him, and just learning. Like we probably have one of the youngest coaching staffs in the country. So we're constantly like we kind of have a chip on the shoulder because we constantly feel like we got to, we don't have the knowledge to outwork everybody, like to, outthink everybody, but we feel like we got to outwork everybody. So hey, we need to know every kid in the state of South Carolina and the state of North Carolina. We need to be in every event. We need to, be proactive and, and just doing different things and, and that's what's going to set us apart, and just like the work. If you put in a work, constantly day by day, one block, a block and a brick by brick each and every day, that's what's gonna, eventually you're gonna be able to, build something and it'd be something that's sustainable.
Man, you guys are definitely boots on the ground. Every time I've been out, I definitely seen you all, and you all have a presence. But one thing I want to ask is, you just talked about being present when it comes to South Carolina kids and North Carolina kids. And you're not just talking about it because obviously I'm looking at the roster and it's filled, and obviously you see a Cromer is down there now. It's filled with South Carolina kids and North Carolina kids. How intentional are you guys? Not necessarily that you have to give a bunch of scholarships just to South Carolina. I mean, nobody would do that. But how intentional are you guys with getting eyes on South Carolina kids just to make sure, that you are recruiting, maybe not giving offers to everybody, but you are recruiting that landscape?
We want great kids in our program that, South Carolina provides that. A slogan that we kind of have in our program currently, we tell kids to come in here, are you going to become a better basketball player coming in? Absolutely. But you also going to become better men when you walk away from our program. So that's what we kind of want to instill. It's tons of talent. We search all across the state for it. And we're very intentional in that. Hey, we go to the Bash. Hey, we go to beach ball. Hey, we're at the Pepsi Classic. Hey, we're at South Carolina Live in June. We're up in the upstate area at different events. We talk to I talk to every high school coach as possible, and we give fair evaluations. And we're open to coming to any practice, open, during the open period. I think between our staff, I think we hit 50, 55 different practices last August and September, just looking for kids, who fit what we do. We believe in positionalist offense. You have to be able to dribble, pass, and shoot at a high level, no matter what size you are. So that's where we kind of hit. That's what we trying to figure out and just find kids who fit that.
Yeah, and thanks for that, Coach Paul. I got two more questions for you, and we'll get you out of here. But talk a little bit about the Conference Carolinas, man, because I actually think not just D2, but this conference in general, specifically, I should say, man, it's a gold mine because there's some talent there, but you got to be ready to hoop. You gotta be ready to play. You can't just walk in there, thinking that you're gonna run in this conference because there's some good coaches and really good players. Talk a little bit about the intensity and the competition in the Conference Carolinas.
Conference Carolina is underrated in my opinion. Like UNC Pembroke was in the Elite Eight last year.
Mm-hmm.
A very good, well coached team that's like they're tough, they're gritty, they're well coached, they play hard, they do all the right things. Also having kids that, 2 years ago, have a kids who currently playing for the Nets and, KJ Jones at Emmanuel. So it's tons of talent. I think you find a lot of kids and like, hey, I'm D1 or bust. Like, I'm looking at some of these kids like you won't touch the floor out of Division II roster. But I think we're real adamant in saying like, hey, like we tell high school coaches call and be like, hey, like I want you to recruit our kids, and we'd be like, absolutely, but you and your kids also need to come to our games to see if they can truly fit and play at this level because it's a high level, very very high level. A lot of people understand like just to play any form of college basketball, and you're in the top 2%.
Yeah.
So like just understanding like it's levels to this, and like the prep that like you have to put in, and like we real adamant on finding guys who love basketball, not like basketball, love basketball.
Well, that's the thing. Unfortunately, everybody loves basketball in high school, but when you get to college, it's a different it's a different story. And with that being said, speak on the event that you hosted or that you were a big part of a few weeks ago, where you had so much talent there that came down in the PD and just in general how it went and how proud you are to have been a part of that event.
Okay, the showcase was just it was a dream. It was just a vision. Like every year, probably for the past.
You guys didn't invite Lost Lettermen down there, but keep going.
It blew up faster than we think. Honestly, as we were planning it, we had no idea what this was. Like we were just blessed to just things just happened and fell in line. We just like I used to have I currently have a camp. Like hey, I have a camp that just kind of grew. So I'm just like, hey, like I want to do something different. Like this year on side of camp, and like hey, like let's give kids an opportunity. So I'm just like, hey, if I can get 5 or 6 coaches, college coaches who come in the gym, and give kids the opportunity, that'd be great. That didn't happen. That turned into, hey, we're gonna have girls, and shout out to Ryan McGee for helping me facilitate that, and then on the guys side, Jared Charles. So it turned into, hey, we took 66 of the best, or 66 really good boys, and that were 2026s. And instead of 5 or 6 college coaches, it ended up being 22, 23.
Wow.
We said we wanted to get 4 or 5 girls programs from all across the state. We ended up getting 13, 14. It like we're just blessed, and like the event just to come out the way it is. It was bigger than what I thought it was. It gave a lot of kids the opportunity to kind of match up to see where they were at. You got a chance to bump against the best, and a lot of kids came out better. As of right now, from what I heard, I think at least 12, 13 offers that came out just out of the showcase.
Yeah, I saw a few right on that day. Got an offer. So what do you? And this is the last question. We got Coach Patrick Paul, and thanks for joining tonight, Coach. But One last question. What do you think the biggest challenge is sometimes for high school? And I know this is kind of a blanket question, but what do you think the challenge is sometimes for high school players kind of to get that offer? If you're kind of on the like on the ledge where you could get offer or you might not get an offer, what do you think kind of separates those who ultimately do get the offer as opposed to those who may not get an offer?
That's a lot of reasons, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like for us, like for me, like if I'm there to watch you, I know everything about you. I know what high school you play with. I know what AAU program you play with. I almost know who your middle school coach is. I didn't crawl around about you. Especially, I mean, if you're a South Carolina kid, like I didn't talk to like 5, 6 conversations about you. I didn't talk around you, just been around. So like I know exactly who you are. So like like the little things that matter, like hey, like we're adamant about getting there. What's your pregame prep? Like, how do you go about what you're doing in the warm up lines? How you are with your teammates? How you are with, like with referees? How you are with the fans? Like, are you, like, like, are you hitting every shot you got to celebrate? Like, those things like matter to us. Like,
Right.
and I don't think a lot of people understand what it is. And I think also like high school coaches, like, also in AAU programs, putting themselves in positions where their kids can be recruited. Like, hey, like, I'm a high school coach and I feel like I have a couple of kids that I would like, I think can play at Francis Marion level. Like, are you pushing them to elite camp? Are you bring your team to team camp? Where, our team camp, like, not being biased, like when it comes to the Division II level, is probably one of the best team camps in the state, where you get an opportunity where your whole coaching staff watch all your games. And like, we play with a shot clock before we can evaluate you, like in your players, as how we would want them to play in our system. So I think like my suggestion that I give to parents and kids, like take hold of your own recruiting. Email college coaches, like programs that you're interested in. Go to elite camps, go to team camps, go to games. Like, if I have a familiarity with you and I keep seeing the same face over and over again, like, hey, I'm gonna remember that kid. I'm gonna remember that family. And and taking care of like the academic side of the thing. Like I'm big on like when I open up, like, Coach Z is adamant about us reading every email. So honestly, if I open up an email and I see a 2 point something, I don't even like, that kid better be like he better be LeBron James at that point. Like, so like
Oh,
taking care of
good.
the academics and like their social media, like, like clean up your social media, like, and like, be very, proactive. Like, I'm a servant in the community. Like, hey, like I want to see that type of stuff in emails. I want to see you like really giving back, like doing that type of stuff. Like, because like as at our program, that's the type of stuff we're doing. Like, we go and we do clinics at the Boys and Girls Club. We go to local elementary schools. We go to, veteran houses and, do bingo and, and serve food. And like, if you're not willing to do that by yourself, how are you going to be able to do this at a college? So like, that's the type of things that we're kind of look for. And that's the type of things that help you going forward when it becomes recruiting. Nobody wants to recruit a jerk to their program, because like I'm like, once the season hit, I'm spending 15, 16 hours with you. I don't want to be around. I don't want to spend 15, 16 hours with a bad person. Like, I'm on a bus like 6 hours about to go fight for my life against Young Harris or Emmanuel. Like, I don't want to be around a bad person or somebody I don't want to be around.
Right.
Like, I want to be around good people and be like, and I can joke with, who I can learn from as a coach. Like, cause like as much as I pour out of knowledge, I want to be able to be poured back into by just learning and just listening to, to other people and what they have going on. And that's how you become better and each and every day.
You know what? And I apologize. I got one more question. Sorry about that. But you said something that put this in my head. You talked about guys. I'm saying guys here, but it's same for girls. But with the question I asked you is, what do you look for? And obviously, by the time you've got your eyes on somebody, you know whether they can play or not. So it seems like the intangibles, like how they treat their teammates, how they treat their coaches, how they treat the referees, can put you over the top, or it can take you even further. So, that's the one thing I picked up on. But the second thing is, you kind of talked about how the players need to take control of their recruiting and not necessarily play zone, and be like, email college coaches, email whoever you feel like you need to email to kind of get yourself out there in terms of presenting yourself. That doesn't mean you're going to get an offer, but at least that you kind of did everything that you could do in terms of presenting your package. My last question is for parents and players, because a lot of players actually email me and I don't really know anybody, but they email. But one thing I'll never do is I always respond, man. If somebody, because I love kids who are aggressive. It just is what it is. Because in life, you got to be aggressive. Any kid who emails me, I make a point to email them back or contact me. I make a point to contact. And if I missed anybody, go out on social media right now and say, man, you didn't email me back. But anyway, with that being said, how important is it for you as a coach to be able, the flip side of that, how important is it for you as a coach to be able to have real conversations in terms of what you see to players and parents, and what you see in terms of where your son is, as opposed to maybe where they think they are, and just have active dialogue? Because unfortunately, that's a big part of college basketball as well, getting real feedback. And sometimes people don't always want the real feedback. So how important is that for you to be able to have those types of conversations, and people be able to take those types of conversations?
Honestly,
it's not negative, it's just constructive.
Like, honestly, you said a mouthful with the last part.
Not the first part.
Nah. I mean, like, I'm gonna touch on the last part first. Like, a lot of everybody want feedback. Take time to get feedback. What it really is. Like, hey, like, I really love your kids as a person, but like, there's certain kids are, like, hey, what do you think of my kid? And I'm just like, do you, like, you want the truth, or do you want me to tell you how, like I'm willing to give, any kid that I run across where I'm willing to give feedback to. Hey, what do you need to do? How to get better? Hey, what, like, how I can help you along the process. Are you willing to hear it? A lot of kids and parents are not willing to hear the truth at times. And
or your opinion. It doesn't necessarily have to be the truth. It's your opinion. You know what I mean? It's your opinion.
Yes. And I think a lot of people rather than be told a lie than to really hear the truth, or hear, some factual thoughts. Like, hey, my son is a 5'10" power forward, and he wants a full scholarship. That's not how this going to kind of play out. So you kind of like, hey, like, hey, this is some type of stuff that you kind of really need to do. But like you said, like, being proactive with your recruiting, and just like, engaging with people, like, you provide a platform where, like, hey, you allow DMs and, and video content to kind of reach, like, yourselves. Like, like, for us, like, we're big on that. Like, like, hey, like, I might see your DM, I get a DM, I watch your DM, I watch your film, and you never know next week I'm in your gym. So
Right. You gotta be ready.
like
Gotta be ready.
so everybody said they want opportunity to opportunity really shows up. Like, like, hey, like, like there are a lot of kids, like I work camps all across the country. Be like, hey, like, I'm excited to see you, like, hey, you need to come see me till like we really pop up to the gym. Like, like during the season, if we got a chance to be out, the whole staff is out. We got a chance to be out on a Tuesday night. We're out on a Tuesday night. We got a chance to be out on a Friday night. We out on a Friday night. Christmas break when our guys have gone home for 10 days. We're at the bash. We had every event in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia that we can be at just to see kids. So like you say you want to play here, you're interested in us, or we heard you have a buzz across your name. Like we want to see it. And a lot of kids don't understand, like, just because you're not getting an offer right now doesn't mean it's not going to come. And and then it's big on understanding the coaching community. The coaching community is really, really small, and understanding like, hey, how we having this dialogue, having this conversation right now. Like, I'm quick to get on my phone to call, like, hey, call my other friends at different leagues and different conferences and at different schools. Like, hey, there's a kid that we like, he's really, really good. We can't take right now, but like, here's somebody you need to take a look at. Like, like he doesn't fit what we do. Our scholarship situation is kind of full, but like this is what you can kind of do to, and that's what it is. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. And that's the part that I wish, more students and more parents understand it. Like, you're in front of a set of college coaches. You're not in front of 2 or 3. You're really in front of 400, 500 because, the resources and the connections that they have to help you.
Well, and we're gonna get you out of here on that one. And this is the thing that I would say. Sometimes you don't meet your goals. Sometimes you just don't meet your goals. Really, all you can ever ask for, in my opinion, you could disagree, is an opportunity. Now, what you do with that opportunity is on you. But as long as you've got an opportunity, then that's all you can ask for. And the second part of it is, if you've been on the circuit and you've played in front of hundreds of coaches, it is what it is. That's your opportunity. If it doesn't work and you don't get the offers that you thought or whatever, if whatever does not happen the way you thought it was going to happen, you got your opportunity. There's nothing wrong with not achieving what your goal was. Now, you can change your goal and do it a different route, but sometimes, and I hate to use the word failure, but I like failure because it means you tried. It means you tried to go after something, and maybe, you didn't meet that goal or objective, and maybe you just have to, change whatever your goal or objective was. But with that being said, do you have any shout outs before we get out of here?
Yeah, I have a few. Just like for like kids who watch this be able to watch this podcast. The grind is necessary, man. Continue to put in the work. Do all the right things. Even if you make a mistake, do the next best right thing. So that I leave you that. Take care of your stuff that you need to take care of in the classroom. Going back to being proactive with your recruiting. Go to all elite camps. Like, just be blessed if you get an opportunity to play college basketball in any form of fashion. Stuff happens so quick. Just how a coach that like is at a D3 might be at Duke tomorrow. So have conversations with everybody. But shout out to Francis Marion University. The best school in the state of South Carolina, in my opinion, at Division II level. That's my opinion. Coach Zender, a lot of great high school coaches out here. Can't name all of them. Coach Staley doing a phenomenal job. Coach English doing a phenomenal job. Coach Brown at Sumter.
Coach Carlton. You can name Coach Staley, Coach Carlton, Coach English,
Yeah,
Coach Brown.
Coach,
They're all friends. They're all friends of
yeah,
the
Coach
show, man.
Carlton, Coach Fowler.
Hey, Coach
A lot
Fowler, absolutely.
of phenomenal coaches, but also a lot of phenomenal coaches on the girls' side that's like doing hell of a job. That just kind of did being proactive and just kind of working with their kids, and a lot of phenomenal trainers out there that doing really good jobs and with running AAU programs, and like Coach Savage and Coach Brazil and Coach Wade down in the Aiken area with doing phenomenal things. So just like continue to do what you're doing, continue to grow, like use this platform that we have, continue to grow the state of South Carolina when it comes to basketball, and unify, and maybe this thing can be better.
Man, that's fantastic. And as you were saying all those coaches, I was thinking to myself, man, there are so many. I really haven't come across many, like what I would say is a bad coach. There are so many good high school coaches and people associated with programs who all just really want not that kids getting a scholarship is the end all be all, but just want kids to fulfill whatever their dreams are and really kind of pour into them with very like not a whole lot of ROI on that. But man, they're just other than the enjoyment of seeing the kids fulfill their dreams. So man, it's fantastic. And as you started naming those coaches, I was like, man, you have to be naming about 100 or 200 different coaches.
Like
if you really went down that list.
Like it's phenomenal, and it's a lot of what I'm loving. It's a lot of young coaches in the game that's really growing and doing phenomenal jobs. And I only want to get started on that list. Is Coach Porty down at Georgetown, Coach Knox at
shout out to Coach Porty.
Coach Knox down at Marlborough County, Coach Kelly at Marion High School, and there's a lot of upcoming assistants that I like eventually will get shots at being head coaches one day. Oh, another great coach is that's he's like a young OG is Coach Lee at Lakewood, who's doing a phenomenal job that like spreading knowledge and teaching the game. But a lot of great assistants that coming up that eventually they're gonna get their shot and they're gonna be ready for when they do, like Coach York at Blackwood and Coach Woods at Sumter High, and it's tons of phenomenal coaches around here, and they're doing a great job of growing the game and teaching the game the right way for they can take the next step.
Man, that's what's up, Coach Paul. And thanks for joining the Lost Lettermen. And definitely, we'll make sure that we stay connected not only to you, but Coach Prime. He's a big friend of the show. We love Coach Prime.
Yeah.
But man, much respect to you. I've definitely enjoyed hearing your journey. We'll make sure that we're going to be a part of it going forward.
Appreciate you. Anytime y'all need.